Today is a special episode because we got Fairfield University women's basketball head coach, Coach Carly. You guys went 28-5, lost first round of the NCAA tournament. Talk about some of the advancements that you see from Fairfield just kind of going into next year.
We felt like because we have such a great returning core, we needed to find great complements, which we've been able to do. And when we've gone into the NCAA tournament the last couple of years, we are significantly smaller, but having kind of that physical presence that Lana brings, I think will add an element that we haven't had in the tournament in years past.
Last year, I think you were 2-3 in quad 1 games, but most of your schedule is quad 4 because you're playing in the MAAC. So just talk about like your perspective, how you try to schedule.
We've gotten rejected next year by almost 40 P4 schools that won't play us.
Talk about the innovation of your offense, but also like the next steps moving forward for Fairfield.
Yeah, we knew when we took the job, we knew this was a gold mine. We have a brand new arena, we have high-level facilities. We wanted to be that mid-major that made noise on the national scene.
I wouldn't be surprised if a blue blood or in the future a WNBA team like reached out to you about a coaching position. So just talk about your rise in coaching, your perspective, and what the future is for Coach Carly.
To be honest, we're making the Big Ten where we're at. I have the support, I have the investment, especially in a world that's changing with NIL. We get to do it in a very unique way, a very different way, and so why not do it where it's never been done before?
Welcome back to another episode of Not Even D2. I'm your host, KJ Allison, here on my boy and co-host, Naruto Perdomo. Definitely got a great episode where we talk with Fairfield's women basketball head coach, Coach Carly Thibault-DuDonis. And this is a great program right now, and it's not getting as much conversation surrounding it. Like when you talk about dominant programs that have continuously made it into a tournament, continuously won their conference, like Fairfield's got to be a more like best mid-major programs in the country, which we'll talk about a lot. But sports is at a great point right now. The NBA, we getting close to the ECF and WCF. Both of our teams got the sweep. The other two series tied 2-2. The W just kicked off. The Wizards got the number 1 pick, tanked their way to that. The last time we'll probably see a team successfully tank. But what you been up to, bro? Talk to me.
Man, I'm good, man. Just got back to New Hampshire after a long spring semester at Utica, just kind of relaxing, getting stuff done around the house and whatnot. So it's great to be back. But you're right. Sports is in a great place, bro. Got a lot of great takes that I've been waiting to share with you, bro.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. We'll probably talk about some league after this episode with Coach DuDonis real quick. So my roommate, he's a big Lakers fan, as you. I wish you were my roommate so I could do this to you. But I got a broom in my room, and I put it right outside his door. So when he opened his door in the morning, it just fell right into his room. He was like, "Yo, what the?" But no, I'm a troll for that.
That's hilarious.
Under sweet. But yeah, let's talk about this episode with Coach DuDonis. Great coach. Like I said, I think they went 28-5 last year, 19-1 in the conference, 19-1 the year before that in the conference, 20-0 2 years before that. So that's why I'm saying like they're such a dominant program at this point. She's a great coach, not just like her schemes offensively are super high level, but how she holds her program to a certain standard is super underrated as well. Like needs to be talked about, the S.T.A.G acronym, which we talk about. But it was a great episode. Talk to me what you think about talking with Coach Carly.
Yeah, definitely a great episode. It's been cool to get like the mid-major powerhouses on the podcast. So definitely shout out Coach Carly for getting on the pod. But I can only echo the same comments that you made, bro. She has built rather a great program in Fairfield, and we asked her at the end of the podcast just about her future, and she kind of echoed the same things that Travis Steele was saying at Miami, Ohio. Like I feel like we can get it done here. We have the resources, we have the community, we have the support. And I don't see why not, man. Like you said, I'm pretty sure they were ranked in the top 25, if not this year, in years past. And when you're a mid-major, you could do that. Like that's a high bar and elite group that you're in. So shout out Coach Carly. She one of the best in the women's basketball coaching ranks and coaching ranks overall, both men's and women's. So definitely excited to see what her future looks like.
I'm super excited to see what this schedule looks like for Fairfield. They're gonna load it up, and it's super like with the net and how the committee ranks teams at this point. It's super important. It could be just like one little smidge of a game, like who you're playing. So I'm intrigued to see how like their high majors come into play towards the end of the season, they're gonna finish strong in the MAAC. Like I have a lot of confidence in that, but just getting into the tournament, like a 10 seed versus an 11 seed is a big deal at this point in the tournament. So it's going to be a special season for Fairfield. I'm excited for you guys to get a little inside look into their program, but subscribe to us, go follow us at Not Even D2, and let's get into this conversation with Coach DuDonis.
All right, we are here, man. Another episode of Not Even D2. And today is a special episode because we got Fairfield University women's basketball head coach, Coach Carly. How you feeling today, Coach?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate you getting on. I'm going to take a stab at the last name. Thibault-DuDonis?
Yeah, great job.
Yeah, I see, Rude. I'm catching up to you, but Coach, I'm curious, what's the offseason been like? I know you guys signed a few transfers, one from Purdue, one from Green Bay. It's been like coming off 3 straight MAAC championships. A lot of eyes going to be on the Fairfield team. So just talk about like what the offseason's been like for you.
Yeah, so we always give our team a couple of weeks off. We finished in the NCAA tournament late March and gave them off through the first week of April. And then, as you know, as you mentioned, the portal opened and we knew we had a couple of spots. We're very fortunate to be where we are at Fairfield, where we are able to retain. We have a really high retention rate. You know, pretty much all of our women that play a significant role have stayed over the years. We've never really lost, a starter or a major minutes student athlete. So we're in a great place, and we can be picky. So if we don't get what we want, in the freshman class, we can wait and get it in the portal. So we were looking for a couple, and we when Lana went in, we've known her for a long time. We've known her family for a long time. She's from New Hampshire. We recruited her out of high school. Her sister's been to camp. I mean, there's been a whole bunch of different ties to that family. And so we knew that was an immediate target for us. And we knew that was our next step to be able to go compete in the NCAA tournament was get a little bit bigger and get some kind of true size in our system and someone that can play in our system. And then Paige from Bowling Green, she is just a really experienced guard. We're graduating some seniors that played a big role, and I'm really excited for the group that we have coming in, both freshmen and transfers, because they add a lot. But I love her experience. She's started almost every game of her career in 3 years, 1,000-point scorer in 3 years, and fits the shooters you mold with 67 threes, I think, last year.
Wait, so you were a shooter last year too. So what are you looking for in shooters when you're recruiting them?
Well, I've been a shooter my whole life. So, that's something when I became a head coach, I'm like, I can teach shooting, so let's shoot. But that's something that we've talked a lot about as we've built this system, is having shooters all around. And if you're not a shooter, then you need to be elite in something else. And, someone like Lana Cyanco on our team, they are elite in a lot of other ways, whether it's scoring inside. Cy can guard 1 through 5. There's a lot of, you have to be able to bring something very different you have to be elite at. You can't just be like, yeah, you're a good defender. You got to be a great defender. Or you're not just a good interior player, you're great. And so those guys are. But we've been able to surround them with great shooters. So it makes it really hard to choose. Are you going to help, when Lana or Cy is going one-on-one from off of, 40% 3-point shooters?
Yeah. You mentioned how you were a shooter your whole life, and we're going to talk about your offense in a little bit, but one specific stat that I saw that I was kind of curious about is you were top 3 in 3-point attempts per game, and the 2 above you were Ohio and Arkansas State. Neither of them are in the top 50 in percentage though, but you guys are like 8th maybe in percentage. So I'm curious, as a shooter, like, are you getting in the gym with them? Like, here's what I'm seeing with your jump shot. Talk about like your development, specifically switching like technique or something like that.
Yeah. Don't forget we're number 1 in made threes in the country. So that, we recruit great shooters. And as a younger head coach, I am someone that wants to be in the gym with them. That was actually a little bit of an adjustment. When I first got to Fairfield, they would all like text my assistants to go get extra work in and shoot. I'm like, why isn't anybody texting me? And they're like, yeah, no, that's not a thing with head coaches. And I'm like, okay, we're not doing it that way. And really early on, I'm like, I'm going to be in the gym. I'm going to kind of be there with them through their development. And so, yeah, I shoot almost every single day, multiple times a day with somebody on our roster. So there's that individual development all through the year. But then one major change that we made last year to this year is as a staff, we always do a staff retreat. We always have different projects and film that we look at, edits that we make, and we go through kind of some incremental adjustments that we want to make, and how can we incrementally get a little bit closer to, being a team that can win in the tournament, to being a top 25 team, statistically speaking. And so that was the 3-point shooting efficiency was a huge part of that. We've always been top 20 and made threes per game in the country, but we were like top 100 in 3-point percentage in the last few years. And so that was this past year, that was my project to look at. I literally watched like 1,000 threes, all 1,000 threes that we shot last year. Where were we most efficient? Where were we least efficient? What were the common denominators when we weren't making threes that we feel like we should? And where can we be more efficient? So a couple of the common denominators were pass efficiency, towing the line more, not shooting unnecessarily deep threes, where our threes came from, where were our most efficient, least efficient, and so kind of made some adjustments both in our development and in our offense.
It's that film room. The film room will do wonders for any
Film don't
team. And
lie.
yeah, film does not lie at all. And you kind of gave a little bit of a season overview in that answer. But if you can go just a little bit more in depth, you guys went 28-5, lost first round of the NCAA tournament. Talk about some of the you know advancements that you see from Fairfield just kind of going into next year after this
Mhm.
great season.
Yeah, I mean that's the nice thing. I mentioned the continuity. We have, four of our all conference players back. Katie was a player of the year. Meg was, player of the year runner up, and first team all MAAC. Sai was third team, and then Jillian Herder arguably should have been all MAAC, but was tournament MVP. So she made up, she made her presence known and felt. And so all four of those guys are returning. We've got, Milu and KG, who are, great pieces for us as well, that were freshmen that I think will continue to play a big role. We have 4 freshmen come in, and then we talked about the transfers. And so we felt like, because we have such a great returning core, we needed to find great complements, which we've been able to do, both as freshmen and transfers. But someone like Alana, when we've gone into the NCAA tournament the last couple of years, we are significantly smaller, and we do a lot to try to kind of hold our own in the paint. We're disruptive in other ways, but having kind of that physical presence that Lana brings, I think will add an element that we haven't had in the tournament in years past. Meg and Katie are 2 that have been with us for, their entire careers. There's 3 for 3 in MAAC championships in their time here so far, and they came here with the goal to go 4 for 4 and go to the Sweet 16. And so those guys are incredibly hungry, as well as the rest of their teammates, but they've been here through it and know what it's going to take, and I'm really excited for their leadership challenge along with that. And then the last piece is we got our staff retreat in about a month, and we're excited because we are going to continue to adjust and tinker with our offense, some things we can do defensively to be even more disruptive. And then the final piece is our schedule. We're always going to schedule really difficult. We have to. And as you can see, the way that we've scheduled more intentionally year after year of a more difficult schedule, that's allowed us to get a better seed. So we know seeding and matchups are going to be everything when it comes to making a run in the tournament.
So for the audience that doesn't know, I sent Coach Thibault like a draft of questions, and apparently she didn't read it because she touched on every single thing that I'm
I
gonna
just was
bring.
opening I read it. I'm just opening the door for you to, poke it what you want to poke at.
No, it's cool because we could adjust with it. But so you mentioned like one big thing that you noticed going into the tournament is the size difference. And
Mhm.
I was gonna ask you like what you've learned through these past 3 years, because not a slight against you, but 3
Mhm.
straight MAAC tournament championships, only lost 2 games in the MAAC in the past 3 years. But each time like you get to the first round, and
Mhm.
again, not a slight, but I don't think a game was within 15 points over the last 3 years. So one, I'm curious your perspective on just like, I feel like in women's basketball compared to the men's, you don't really see like the 1 versus 16 good games or the upsets that you might see on the men's side. So I'm curious why you think that is, but two, like if you can go more on what you've learned in the past 3 years in the tournament.
Well, I'll start with the kind of the men's versus the women's side. I think, you're seeing there's not really upsets on either side, as much as there has been. If you look back the last couple of years, it's really been chalk a lot of the way through. And not, not exactly, but there's been very few upsets on both sides. I think the landscape is changing with conference realignment and with obviously the NIL piece. And so I don't think that the women are unique to that anymore. I think for us, we have gotten incrementally better. The seed, we've gone from a 13 to a 12 to an 11. And really 10 is the sweet spot of some of the upsets nowadays with how the landscape has changed. And so we are being very intentional of how we schedule for that. And while it's not been within 15, we've gone from, 30 and 40 points now to 19. And it was a game at halftime against Notre Dame. So we're going in the right direction. That by no means is that a moral victory, but we know that there are things both in recruiting. We don't ever want to be like big for no reason. We don't ever want to just get size just to say that we have size. We'd rather be more skilled, and that's what's allowed us to go beat teams from almost every major Power Four conference. But we've now been in a position to go get someone like Lana, who isn't big for no reason. She's big and skilled, and she's long and she can block shots. So we do feel like that's kind of one of the next steps. But we also don't want to. Our identity is what's got us this far to be ranked in the top 25 in almost every major statistical category. And so it's kind of finding that balance of not putting the cart before the horse and just going and changing everything that we do just to say that we got bigger.
I just thought it was kind of interesting because, like, we made the joke about, or not joke, but made the point rather that about the score of the games in each of the first few round matchups. But it's kind of interesting. You made the point, Coach Carly, that it's starting to get a little bit closer, and it was a game, and fans may look at the box score and be like, oh, they're still double digit, but you're like, no, like we're slowly getting
We're in
there.
that game.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting, your point.
And I'll say too, we were a little, I don't want to say disappointed. You're always excited for your challenge. But we were the best 11 seed, statistically. We were the best 11 seed, and we got the best 6 seed in Notre Dame, which we're waiting for a good matchup. And again, to be honest, it's showing by their Elite Eight run, they weren't a 6 seed. They won 9 of their last 10 going into the tournament. They got healthy. So we've had a couple of difficult matchups where if you look 2 years ago when we got Kansas State, Ioka Lee had been out for a month and a half before she got hurt. They were, being talked about as a 2 seed. And then she misses the entire, end of the season. And now they're a 5 seed. And so it's a little bit the luck of the draw. There's a lot of things that do have to go right, as far as you have to be healthy, you have to get the right matchup, all these things kind of factor in. But we're doing our work on our part to get the best seed possible and the best matchup possible, and we're waiting for that great matchup. We'll be ready.
Yeah, I was watching the highlights of the Notre Dame game earlier, and that was a tough matchup, just because one thing I think that they emphasized against you guys is they're playing fast, but we also want to get out and play really fast to match their tempo. And then when you go up against Hannah Hidalgo,
Yeah.
that's a tough matchup. Some of the things that you try to force, like tough mid ranges, she excels in. She wants to play in those type of games. So it was a tough matchup for sure. And then also being in the MAAC, you guys might have been the best 11 seed, but the committee might be like, oh, they're just playing MAAC competition, so we're not going to favor that. And that makes me question or want to hear your perspective on scheduling. I know you said, and looking at your schedule, you always have 3 to 4 high major games on the schedule. And last year, I think you were 2 and 3 in quad 1 games, but most of your schedule is quad 4 because you're playing in the MAAC. So just talk about your perspective, how you try to schedule. Obviously it's intentional what you're doing. So talk about that.
Yeah, we're trying to load up as much as possible in the non-conference. And honestly, it's getting harder and harder because, we get told all the time of play hard games, and we're like, great, make some people play us. We've gotten rejected next year by almost 40 P4 schools that won't play us. So that sounds great in theory, go make a really hard schedule, but we end up having to go play, Richmond and Villanova, because we're all having the same problem of people not wanting to play us. I am really excited for this upcoming season. The NCAA has allowed for 3 more non-conference games, so now we can go up to 32. So now we're getting closer and closer to having a little bit more balance in our schedule, whereas a lot of these P4s, they play a much more don't want to say easy, but a very different non-conference schedule, and then they have a hard conference schedule where we are very much kind of flipping that, where our first half of the season is going to be loaded up. We're going to play 7 or 8, P4s, Big East in our non-conference, and it's just you got to be ready sooner. You don't have time to kind of ease in and learn about yourself through the non-conference, where we got to be ready to go. And so we are loading up as much as humanly possible in the non-conference, and it helps us to be ready for conference play. It helps us to be battle tested. We know that we have to take care of business in the MAAC. We can't, we can't not win our league. We have to do everything in our power to be as close to 20-0 in our league, and then go win the MAAC tournament, because nothing's guaranteed to us. So all of it matters, and regardless of league or non-league, every game matters for us to do what we want to do and have a great seed.
I think it's kind of interesting, just, like, since you already, obviously you guys are pretty confident going into the MAAC season and the MAAC tournament, but it's like by you scheduling some of these games with P4 opponents, it's like you're setting the bar higher for your team almost. It's like, no, like, we're trying to prepare ourselves for this like deep NCAA tournament run. Like, the girls need to understand, like, this is why we're scheduling these games to prepare us. Yeah, we want to get the seeding for the NCAA tournament, of course, but you want to play against these top teams to prepare you for later, right?
Exactly. And I have a team that's very competitive. They look forward to it. They are not by any means scared by any of these opponents on our roster. They were excited to go play at Iowa and against North Carolina this past year. And even, you talk about incrementally better in scores, like those are games that we probably would have been blown out in years past, and we were up and pretty big in the first quarter and ended up losing each by 14. And so you can see the progress, and now this year is going to be a really good barometer of, especially early on, how much further we've grown from last year to this year.
Yeah. It's also like the retention piece is why you're able to do that, is like you said we don't have time to figure out ourselves. You don't need to really, because your core pieces, the people you came in with are going with you, and you can see that in your schedule. Like, I think 2 years ago you played Richmond and they dominated you guys like by 20, and then you look at this year and yeah, Richmond wasn't as good, but you guys won by 20. So it's like that complete flips showing how you guys are getting better. But real quick before Ruta goes, do you have any high majors already like booked, or can you talk about that?
Not that I can talk about publicly yet. Contracts are still being finalized, but we do already have 4 on the schedule, and we plan to get to 7 as far as the high majors and P4s and things like that. Still in the works. Still, contracts needing to be finalized, but we're certainly gonna have some great matchups.
For sure. Definitely excited to see what that schedule looks like. Definitely gonna have to catch a game next year for sure. But it's another point too, Coach Carly. I don't know if you had anything on this, but sometimes when you play, or when I view like you guys playing some of these like top mid-major teams, I kind of like. I know maybe it doesn't help the schedule, but I think it's kind of cool. Like when you play a team like Davidson that is they're in the A10, but they're probably not a P4, but you could still have a good game with them. Like those high level games are always cool, I think,
Yeah.
on the schedule.
I mean, we would play a bunch of them, honestly. The problem is just how the committee views it. Is it just us cannibalizing each other, and then it's another, somebody's going to lose that game, and both of us should really be NCAA tournament teams. And so, what we feel we need, and a lot of our kind of mid majors like us, like a Richmond, like a Davidson, we need to schedule those kind of bubble at large teams in the P4s, not the automatic qualifiers that are going to win the ACC. We need kind of 6 through 10, and that they're making an argument that they play in the Big Ten, the ACC, and unfortunately 6 through 10 most of those leagues won't play us. And so that's where we end up having to play some of these mid majors, and then they can use that as an argument for whoever loses, like, well, you guys lost, and use that against you. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword.
It's kind of funny too, probably, because your program's already established, but because you guys are established now, like teams are like, oh, I don't know if we want to, get them on our schedule.
Yeah,
Kinda.
yeah, it's been a challenge. My husband, who's my assistant on my staff, he handles that, and so he has a very difficult job. And then I insert my 2 cents and I tell him no or yes based on certain things, but he has a difficult job.
Hey, we got to give him some praise for sure. Shout out husband for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about something specific in your program, and I heard you talking about in an interview, the STAG acronym. So I heard what the STAG acronym is. So I want you to tell the audience what it is and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis for your program.
Mhm. So I'm not a coach that has a 20-page rule book. We keep everything on one page and it's very values based. It's are you living within our program values? We are very clear about this when we recruit anybody that we bring into our space. We talk about it daily with our team. And so they know the expectations, and it allows us to work within our values rather than, you did or you didn't, the hard rules. It's life based. And so our staff came up with it 4 years when we took the job. And the STAG acronym is selfless, tough, accountable, and grateful. And we feel like if you do those things every day, if you live within those values, if you practice within those values, play within those values, that you're gonna have success, whether it's on the court or in life. And it allows us to have real human conversations when missteps are, and there's missteps when you make mistakes, about why is this not conducive for you to have a successful life if you make decisions like this. At the end of the day, we're dealing with 17, 18 to 23-year-olds. And so that's what I love about coaching the college game is we're helping women grow up. We're helping them mature, become young women that are ready to go on and, take on the world. And so those standards allow us to teach life as much as it is teach basketball. And so we find ways to make that present every day in our huddles, in our circles, in our locker rooms, how we talk about each other, how we encourage each other, keeping it very values based rather than outcome based, in that way. And so it's been a really helpful tool, and I think it's provided a lot of kind of stability, culture building at the forefront.
Yeah, that's special. And be honest, coach, so were you guys like, we need to find something that relates to stags, like that's our map, or was it just a natural thing?
It was pretty natural. I mean, those were things that I think I can't remember exactly where we started and where we ended up as far as what that conversation was, but selfless was something I knew I was going to find a way to incorporate it one way or another. I talked about it on my interview at Fairfield that the selfless piece is so hard to find. It's very uncommon. It's very unique. That we're in a world where it's very individualistic. The social media, you look out for yourself, your own highlights, everything is about you. And trying to create an environment where you don't have to look out for you because you've got 14 women and 6 coaches around you that are doing that. And so then you can put other people first. And so trying to emphasize and build that and bring in the right people. And so that was something I knew way before I knew STAG, the acronym was going to be STAG, that was a huge piece of what we were going to put at the forefront and what we were building.
Yeah, I love the programs that follow like a code or phrases. So what was it? It was stag, selfless, togetherness. What was the A? And then grateful.
Selfless, tough,
Okay.
accountable, and grateful.
All right. On my quote list now. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to transition and talk about like the basketball side of things, your
Mhm.
offense, and one like I mentioned I watched some of the highlights, and you guys have great spacing, great movement, and like the togetherness, cohesiveness. So all of that is positive things. But I think one thing that also like watching years past, you're adding a different layer to your offense every year. So like
Mhm.
or when you first got the job, it was like 4-out, 1 in. Then you
Mhm.
transition into 5-out offense, and then this past year you like really honed into the 5-out offense. But there was also like you're being super intentional. It's not live or die by the three. You're still doing like high lows, manipulating matchups. So just talk about the innovation of your
Mhm.
offense, but also like the next steps moving forward for
Yeah.
Fairfield.
Yeah, we knew when we took the job, we knew this was a gold mine. We have a brand new arena, we have high level facilities. We wanted to be that mid major that made noise on the national scene, and the teams that have done that, in if you look at the last 10 to 15 years in women's basketball, you look at Florida Gulf Coast. When I got the job, South Dakota had just made a run a year or two before. South Dakota State, Creighton, Drake. There's all these schools that have been nationally relevant, not just in their leagues or in mid major. So we looked at all of those schools. We looked at all of their styles of play, and the common denominator is that they have unique style bigs where they can stretch it in a way that becomes a mismatch for bigger schools. They run some variation or version of 5-out, and everybody does it in a different way. And so we watched and we tried to figure out what would our kind of way of doing that, what would make up a 5-out that made sense for our personnel. And we weren't really able to do that in that way our first year because we just didn't have the depth at shooting the three. But we were able to build a foundation for how the ball movement should look, the spacing, being intentional with our spacing. And then obviously we continued to add to that roster. And so you hit it on the head. Yes, we shoot a bunch of threes. We've gotten more and more efficient in the threes to the point where we are the best 3-point shooting team in the country this year. But we're not, shoot threes at all costs and live and die. I think we were 12th in the country in 2-point percentage. And so what we do within our 5-out is we create difficult help situations, long helps that if you're going to go and help on Katie or Nellie or Jill or whoever is driving, you have to make a difficult decision of where you're coming off a shooter. And so you're either, allowing those guys, Cy, to go play one-on-one, which they're very good finishers. We work on finishing just as much as we work on 3-point shooting. And if you're 1-on-2, then you've got a teammate open. And then that's where our spacing and our intentionality of where you need to be when help leaves you, where you need to be in vision. And that creates those difficult, like, okay, are you going to leave us 1-on-1 and we shoot a really high 2-point percentage, or are you going to, bring help and then you got to rotate and then you eventually lose a shooter and it's, the ball zipping around and you're finding someone open. And so the ways that there's a bunch of different ways within that 5-out that we create, advantages for us, disadvantages for the defense, whether it's ball screens, go screens, off-ball screens, things like that, flares. And this year we actually incorporated a lot more flares than we have in the past based on our personnel. But trying to find ways to create those disadvantages and then a little bit of ball reversal and then a little bit of an edge to get downhill or whatever it may be. The second part of your question was how do we plan to advance that? This past year, we added a little bit more pinch options. We had a couple that were pretty good in that to kind of create more variety within our offense as well as flares. This year we will have a little bit more post presence. And so how do we utilize that and be more intentional to look for that within the same kind of flow that we already have within our 5-out?
One thing that's beautiful when you add the extra element and as a former player, I hated playing with post players because sometimes you can feel like stagnant. Obviously you guys shoot a lot of threes, so it might be different and players enjoy spotting up for three. But also I know in your program, like you're a 1 second type of like catch the ball. You got to know what you're doing in 1 second. So how are you going to try to teach? And obviously this is still off season. You're still thinking about things, but with a post presence, like oftentimes they need a little bit more seconds than one to adjust and read the defense. So what's your philosophy with that?
Well, the 1 second rule is effective when you get when you get defense in rotation. It's not always just as you're in your motion or in your offense. There's certain areas in our motion that we do hold it while action develops. It's once you attack a closeout or you're coming off a ball screen and you kick it. Now you've got to make quick decisions. Are you catching and shooting? Are you one-mooring it? Or are you attacking that close out again and getting the rotation continued? And so the post presence will be very similar. However, without really knowing 100% some of the nuance of how we're going to get to it, we're still going to have post presence and post touches coming from unpredictable places. So it's not just plop somebody down there and make them stand there and everybody knows where they're at. It's part of what's made Meg Anderson for us really effective is that she's flying into the post from different places. So it makes it hard to just dig in and it's really predictable. And so still creating some of that kind of lack of rigidity within where those post touches come from.
I feel like when it comes to, since we're having this talk about post touches, I feel like when a big is able to make those reads out of the post, then that's when it really unlocks the offense, I feel, because then when you have, players digging on defense, you have the doubles and the big is able to make that skip pass or be able to make the pass to the cutter in the lane. I feel like that's going to open up so many different areas of the offense.
Well, Cyan Co did that for us this year. She's not 6'4", but she plays way bigger than what she's listed. I think they list her at 6'1". I don't even know that she would say she's that. But she was great at deciding when to zip it out to a shooter and when not to. I think she had over 50 assists this year. And so that's huge coming from your quote unquote five player, which is not really how we see it. But she did an unbelievable job this year of going to score when she was left one on one, which they were, people started to do that more and more and just stick to our shooters. And she had a field day down the stretch. So I think that's a great precedent for what will continue to come when people have to make those difficult decisions. And now it's not just all on her shoulders to do it all the time.
Yeah. And this another transition into like outside of basketball. One thing that just like doing research, you guys won the MAAC Commissioner Cup or something. Specifically, a lot of the Fairfield women's sports do well. So like we've had prior conversations with coaches and they talk about like the athletic department being competitive and like you're seeing this program rise, so you want to rise with them. So just talk about like how the Fairfield success kind of motivates you to continue being like the best mid-major in college basketball.
It was really important when I actually took the job. As one of the things that really intrigued me about Fairfield is that all these women's coaches, and not just on the women's side, but particularly on the women's side, there was coaches that had been there 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that I was like, this is a place that people go and stay and build a life, and build a program, and really have clearly the support internally and externally that they stay. And so, I look at someone like our women's lacrosse team. They had won, I think, it might have been like back to back to back to back when I took the job, in that, and then they gone to the NCAA tournament, and they got the first ever at large in women's lacrosse. And so there had been this just awesome success and clear support. It's one thing to have success, but when you have sustained success and across the board, that's clearly coming from the top of the athletic director, of your president, that you have the support to do what you need to do to win. And so Paul Schlickman and Dr. Nemec, my president, they are unbelievably supportive of us. You can see it in the way that they pour into facilities. They are very intentional to help us win at a high level, and they're aspirational as well. And so it's been really cool to see everybody winning at such a high level. I mean, our field hockey team, they won their first NCAA tournament game this year. And so it's really cool to be around people who are highly motivated and not just happy with, winning their league. They all are pushing for more. And so it's a really cool environment to be in. Our offices are all surrounding each other, so we can go and plop in anybody's office and come up with ideas, talk about things that you're dealing with, and have a lot of people that care about what you're doing, and vice versa.
If you want to shed a little bit light on how it came to be, you were a top assistant in some mid-major and high major programs. So just talk about how the Fairfield opportunity came about.
So yeah, I had been approached by my agent about Fairfield. I guess that was 2022, spring of 2022. And it's funny because I went to high school about an hour from here, and I'd never set foot on Fairfield's campus. I played at Monmouth. They weren't in the same league at the time. And so I never really knew much about it, but I was like, you always will do your research and look into it. And the more we learned about it, the more intriguing it was. And I loved my time at Minnesota. I loved the people I worked with. It was really, really difficult to leave. But each conversation I had with, Paul, our athletic director, Zach Dayton, our deputy AD, and then they brought Blake and I to campus for an on-campus visit. It just kept checking box after box. It was a high level academic institution that was on the rise. They were literally, the arena was a dirt hole in the ground. They were building it as I was going through the interview process, and it was going to be ready that November. So there were so many different reasons why it was, I felt like a gold mine. They had just won the MAAC. And I felt like this could be a place that not just won the MAAC, but was continuing on and winning at the national level. And so that level of support that we already mentioned, that we talked about, and just the location we were in, kind of that heart of the tri-state area where you could get to New York City in less than an hour. You can be in Boston in 2 hours. You're on the beach in 5 minutes. You can really attract a student athlete from anywhere with any interests. And so when they offered, it was really hard to see ourselves not taking that opportunity. And obviously, like we talked about before, they were willing to hire Blake and let us kind of do the husband and wife duo, which is more common in women's basketball. I think we're like one of 17 or 18 couples in the game that are coaching together. So it was really exciting, and here we are now 4 years later.
That's awesome. That's a great story, coach. And if anyone's been to like the Fairfield area, it's definitely a beautiful, beautiful area for sure in Connecticut. You talked about growing up in Connecticut, and we didn't have this on the docket, but Connecticut just has a great history in basketball, but also women's basketball as well. So I'm just kind of curious, what do you think like growing up in that state just did for you overall, if anything?
Yeah. Well, we moved to Connecticut when I was, I think, in seventh grade. And to be honest, before then, I was a gymnast. I thought I was going to be a college gymnast. We moved to Connecticut, and basketball really ruled all. I did the gymnastics thing for probably another 6 months to a year, but that's when I first started playing AAU and traveling. And my dad was coaching a WNBA team at this point, so it was the first time I'd seen professional female athletes, professional female coaches, a whole world that I honestly, I don't want to say I didn't know existed, but it was the first time I'd seen it up close and personal like that. And so my interest did shift at that point. And Connecticut really was a place where they obviously with what UConn has done has created a culture of women's basketball and women that are great at it. So that's really when it shifted for me. And Connecticut had a huge part to that. But it was just so cool. Like I talk about it all the time. Bernadette Maddox was on my dad's staff. It was the first female coach I'd ever seen in basketball, and that's in almost a high school at that point. Which is crazy to talk about and think about. So, yeah, that definitely shifted my perspective.
Nah, that's dope. I don't you might have mentioned in a different interview. I don't know if I heard that, but that's cool that you kind of started playing basketball, I guess. Is that fair to say when you first started being in
Yeah, I mean, I always
Connecticut?
played and I was always around it, but it was when I really became a dream as far as playing at the next level.
That's dope. That's dope for sure. And you obviously have your family is a family of coaches. And I think, obviously your dad, but your brother, he's a current
Mhm.
associate head coach of the Lynx right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Talk about that relationship with your brother. And are you guys like bouncing ideas off each other? Is it competitive a little bit? I know it's different levels, but I'm just kind of curious.
We've always been competitive. He was someone that really helped me when I was playing in college. I would go home and we played one on one, and it was always helpful to me to play against, bigger. I don't know if I should call him faster, but bigger and stronger. I don't know if I give him that much credit, but yeah, I mean, we've always been really communicative. We always have a lot of dialogue. I was always picking his brain early in my coaching career. And it has been cool because he was someone that from player development, how to set up certain drills, how to, create kind of the micro to the macro when you're doing player development. How do you break it down and then build it back up to the group? He's been unbelievable for me in that and how we talk about that. And it has been cool because as I've become a head coach now, we've bounced things off each other in different ways. He was a head coach and I was a head coach at the same time, so that was a really unique dynamic and an ability to talk about not just the game, but how to handle certain situations, how to approach hard conversations. There's so much that we could talk about in a different way that wasn't just X's and O's too.
Yeah, that's special, and you gotta love like siblings growing together and still keeping it like it's supportive, but it's competitive, and
Hmm.
it's similar to like the Fairfield experience you were talking about. Like you're seeing these programs rise, you want to rise too. You don't want your bigger or little brother rising, and you're like the kid that didn't get there. But
Now I
um,
hope he right. I hope Lynx championship all the way this year.
yeah. And I read that he was like big in the development of Natasha Cloud and Ariel Atkins. So it's clear that he's a great coach, and both of you guys are great coaches. We got to shed a little light to probably why you guys are great coaches. Your dad was 3-time WNBA Coach of the Year. And he coached in the league NBA too. So just talk about like what childhood was like learning under him and some of the, if you can give us some gems on what he taught you.
I think the biggest thing that I always talk about with my dad is we learn a lot, X's and O's for sure, but he was someone that was a lifelong learner. He would, always be ready to write down a play if he saw it on whether it was an NBA game or a high school game. It didn't matter. Whether it was a drill, a term, he was always looking for different ways to relate, to get through to, a different learner on his team. And so I always respected that. He would go to NBA training camps every year when he was in the WNBA. He would go to college games and learn. Obviously scout, but also learn. You go to practices, try to figure out different ways to do and teach. And so that always stuck with me. But he claims that he tried to talk my brother and I out of coaching. I don't really think that's entirely true. I think he was sort of excited by that. My mom was a nurse. My brother and I did not want to do anything with the medical profession, but yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see him every day get up and love what he did and go to work, and it wasn't really work. And so that, I think, more than anything, probably influenced me, that he got to go and just be around the game that he loved every day. And it didn't feel like work. A lot of people, their work is a means to do other things, to have the means to go and vacation or live where you want to live, whatever it may be. And really for him, he enjoyed doing it. And that definitely, that apple doesn't fall too far from the tree for my brother and I.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Definitely parents can be our biggest inspiration for sure. Shout out your dad, legend for sure. Um, we're gonna end it with this though before we have rapid fire coach. So, we interviewed Coach Carrie Moore at Harvard. She's destined for great things just like you. But, I kind of asked her basically like I wouldn't be surprised if a blue blood or in the future a WNBA team like reached out to you about a coaching position. So about a head coaching position that is. So just talk about your rise in coaching, your perspective, and what the future is for Coach Carly.
To be honest, we're making the Big Ten where we're at. Those opportunities have come and they haven't been right for a lot of reasons. And ultimately, the biggest reason is that I think we can do it at Fairfield. I have the support, I have the investment, especially in a world that's changing with NIL. We get to do it in a very unique way, a very different way. And so why not do it where it's never been done before? And that's, I think, what's most exciting for me and my staff and our student athletes, is that we get to do it our way. We get to do it in a very values-based institution like Fairfield, with some really neat people around us that are really invested in what we're doing. And so we don't need to go anywhere else to do what we want to do.
I
I
love
love
that, Coach. Yeah.
And Coach, you gave me a quote. I'm gonna give you a quote that kind of like reflects that statement, and it's "Bloom where you are planted." So
Mhm.
yeah, you're at Fairfield, and you're making it the biggest thing ever where you are right now. If stuff changes in the future, it does, but right now you're killing where you are. So I respect that.
I think that quote is actually on one of my pinned tweets about when I signed my contract extension. Boom. There we
Okay,
go.
great
Full
minds think
circle.
alike.
Yep.
Full circle right there. That's super dope. Definitely putting on for the mid majors for sure, Coach. But you ready for rapid fire?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So I heard in an interview, Coach, that you called the Monmouth head coach basically, and she was like kind of, I don't want to say on the fence about offering you, but you called her, was like, hey, like I will put my all into this program. So all that to say, has a player done that to you now in reverse and like been like, hey, like I'm all in for Fairfield, like, take me. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, so Nicole Gallagher, she was on our first championship team. She played 4 years at Bryant. And we had already, so in the transfer portal, we had already offered somebody else a spot. And I try not to offer five kids and say, first come, first serve, and kind of do it that way. We try to be more intentional, and as linear as possible. And so we had already offered the spot to somebody else, and Nikki G had come to campus. We really loved her, but we just, at that point, we're waiting on someone else. Then she had called me and basically was like, I don't care what role I have. I don't care how much I play. I don't care if I'm the leading scorer. I've done that. I just want to win. I want to be a part of a winning program. I want to be a part of your program, and I'll do whatever you need me to do. And I was like, all right, let's do it. She had an unbelievable, it's kind of cool how it worked out. She had a really cool career at Fairfield in 1 year, where she was so mad at herself. She had a shot to basically beat Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt early in that year, and missed the three, and we ended up losing. And it was certainly not her fault. Don't get me wrong. We had a million chances. But that was, that ate at her. And she struggled through the year, missed some threes that usually I think she'd be used to making. But she was the ultimate glue player, like whatever we needed, defending, rebounding, extra possessions, just in the right spot at all times defensively. We went on a 29-game win streak largely because of her. And then in the championship that year, we were in overtime, and she hit the three that basically, was the dagger. And it was like, full circle. We don't win the championship without her, and I'm so thankful that I took her. I know that
That's
wasn't really
awesome.
rapid fire. That was a long answer, but
No, that was a great answer. I loved it. I loved it. Next rapid fire question I got for you. So, I was born in New York City, and, you know, Connecticut, like, people love in Connecticut to say that Connecticut has better pizza, but I disagree strongly. So I don't know if you're a big pizza person, so I wanna hear
You're
your
not gonna
opinion
like
on
my
that.
answer.
Oh, man. What are you gonna say?
Detroit style pizza is my favorite pizza. The square it's not fully deep dish, but it's not thin. I lived in Detroit for a couple years, so Detroit style pizza for sure.
It's definitely on the bucket list. I definitely wanna try it soon. Last rapid fire question I got for you. Just your favorite MAC trip, when you go on conference play, if you could say that. I know you have, like, rivals and stuff like that, so
Mm. Favorite I mean, we always love playing at Quinnipiac. It's always such a great environment. I don't know that there's just one. My husband would say Buffalo because he loves the wing. He lived there. He's a big, wings guy, and so we find like 9 different places to go eat wings in 3 days. But there's not one in particular, but we all, between Quinnipiac and Sacred Heart, they've become, 2 kind of Connecticut schools that you always get great crowds for.
Yeah. I got 2 rapid fire for you. But first, Ruda and I, we gotta catch a game next year, so let's definitely stay in
Got
contact.
you.
And my first one, so you mentioned like you had it on your Twitter, so I started looking. And I see this like thing that you replied to someone like as a hater kinda.
Mhm.
What was that about? It's not really rapid fire, but just because you said I usually don't respond to
I
like
don't.
your
Yeah.
comments, but what about this one got you?
Yeah, no, I'm not super active on social media anymore. I think um that has pulled us out of reality to a point. So I've tried to be more grounded in the people that I'm around rather than social media. There are, as with all the success that we've had, there has been times this year where I know whether it's our women, a team account, nobody's immune to haters anymore and bots and all these things. And so sports gambling has changed that world so much of the, social media hate. And so you see it and you kind of let it roll off your back. But I think there is a time and a place when you can check somebody with grace and with class, which is what I tried to do. And like there's so many ways that you can choose to hate on somebody and say the negative thing, and I'm like why just choose kindness, choose to uplift somebody else. And that's ultimately what my message was of like what's the point. And there's a way you can do it that's not being a jerk, and ultimately can kind of suck the sting out of some of it. Like, come on, what are we doing? It was a great opportunity to do that, so why not?
Yeah, and you put a little flex too with the be all the P4s, 3 state chips, and then choose kindness, go Stags. I love it.
Go
I love
Stags, yep.
And then my last rapid fires. So if you had a ideal guest that you wanted to see on Not Even D2, who would it be? But you have to help us get him on.
Mm, an ideal guest. And
Him
I
or
can't
her. I didn't mean to
I say I
box
can't say anybody in my family, right?
I mean, you definitely could.
I'll start with this. There's a couple people I'll throw out, but the first one, Eric Johnson on my staff. No longer on my staff. He just took the head job at Denver. I think he's going to do great things there. He was instrumental in what we've built. He was such a key factor. My staff has been awesome. We've been together all 4 years until now, and so I think he's going to do great things. I think jump on that bandwagon while you're early. I think that's an awesome one. And then Cheryl Reeve, my brother's working with her and with the Minnesota Lynx. She is just a legend in this game. And so I look up to so many women coaches and female coaches, but she is at the top with how she has been the epitome of longevity and consistency. So I definitely would give her a shout.
Yeah, shout out to those 2 coaches. You gotta help us get one of them on. So
I'll help.
do
I'll help with both.
I appreciate you. But that was a great episode. We appreciate you getting on. It's always go Stags. We're gonna be tuned in this next year. So appreciate you coming on and good luck for
Yeah, I'm holding you
future
guys to it.
endeavors.
You better come to Mahoney. Come on now.
Will do. Have a good one. All right, that's gonna do it for our conversation with Coach Carly. I think you guys will agree that was a really good episode. She's running a great program. They're climbing the ranks day by day, year by year. So it's cool to see their growth, her growth, And I think your question at the end really hit it on the head. Like why wouldn't, and I know she's not worried about this, but this is what I'm saying. Like, why wouldn't a UNC in the future or a high major program be like, Coach Carly, like you and your husband, let's get money over here. But it's cool to see that Fairfield's taking care of them too. Like mid major, it's showing, like you said with the Travis episode, mid majors can still be a very good program and compete against high major programs. It's just you have to buy into NIL. You have to buy into attacking some of the portal and the need-based situation. So I think there's a lot of good things that mid-majors can tap into that some coaches like Coach Carly have tapped into. Some haven't, but what you think?
It's also like the recruiting and like development side of it too. Like, are you able to recruit like high level players and get like and also develop that talent so where they can be, you could have a guy like Peter Shooter who's top 100 in the NBA draft. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's kind of interesting stuff. And Coach Carly, like we talked about, Coach Carly definitely got a great program over there. And I'm gonna be. I applied to Iona like I told her after. So if I'm there in the fall, definitely gonna be at some Fairfield Iona games. But I need some coach. I need some gear, Coach Carly. If she's listening, I need some gear to rock. I'll rock it against Iona when y'all play.
I love that. I love that. So we're gonna do a slightly longer outro. Again, appreciate Coach Carly getting on, but we'll talk about some NBA stuff mostly. Mostly talk about the playoffs. And you're a Knicks fan. I'm a Thunder fan. We're chilling. We're both comfortable in the next series. Got the sweep. Embiid here and there playing. Tyrese didn't have his best, but you guys got it done. So how you feeling, bro?
Feel great, man. Feel great. Knicks are on a roll right now. I'm pretty sure we won like 5 or 6 in a row at this point.
It's 7.
It's
You guys
7 in a row.
down 2-1 against the Hawks, and then won the next 3, and then sweep. That's it.
Yeah,
Real quick, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's like,
very good.
I'm not saying you, but a lot of fans are like, "Oh, this team, like when you guys went down 2-1, Mike Brown, he's not the answer, and this team can't do it. It's typical Knicks stuff." And then now you guys are ECF bound, probably going to be the favorite to get into the finals, and it's just that's how basketball is. That's how media works. Is like just like that, it flips. But go ahead.
No, I think there's some truth to it too because the first 3 games of this series really didn't look pretty, I felt. But Mike Brown made some adjustments with the team. They started running, some different counters and offenses and, really started honing in on their strengths, capping, hooping. OG was hooping before he got hurt. But we have guys that are filling in for, we have a good bench this year, like Deuce McBride been hooping, Clarkson, Alvarado, Mitch Robb has always been good for us. So I'm real happy with the Knicks right now. Shout out Mike Brown. He brought us back to the ECF when, everyone was talking about how, you know, everyone's laughing at the Knicks because they were trying to get, Ime Udoka, Chris Finch, Billy Donovan, you know, all these coaches, Mike Malone. But how many of those coaches are still coaching in the playoffs right now? Like, let's think about it. So shout out Mike Brown and shout out the Knicks for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy, bro. Like you went not too long ago, people were saying Giannis got to go to the Knicks if they want to actually win, and now I really don't think the Knicks can beat a Western Conference team, but it's still just crazy that you guys are. He rolled his eyes. Nah, but it'll be a battle too. I think whatever the Pistons or the Cavs get into the ECF, which we could talk about that transition into that series. 2-2 right now. It, I think the Cavs are undefeated in home games and then defeated in away games. So that's OD, like, and Pistons have home court. So the Cavs really need to sneak a game, whether it's in 5 or 7. Like they need a road win if they're gonna win this series at this point. And I really don't know, like, Harden's playoff history. Obviously, we can check that box. But D. Mitch, like, he went crazy last night, had 39 in the second half, but he also hasn't looked too comfortable playing with Harden. And it's kind of weird for me to say after what he did last night. Like, that is, it's hard to put into words what that performance was, but just like their chemistry hasn't looked the best, and they're deep as well. They're deeper this as well on the bench this year. So it's going to be a crazy series to end it. On the Pistons side, like, it's like a tale of two teams. I feel like some games, like their physicalness is the dominance in the game, and then other games, like Jalen Duren is just non-existent, and then they need B-Ball Paul, which I'll give you some credit. Like every time he gets on the floor, like he's killing. So he's like they're starting big in some of these games. You would think if you were just a neutral observer. So it's just this series is really competitive. I think you said Pistons are gonna win this series. I said Pistons as well. So that's still what I'm saying. But it's gonna be a battle.
Definitely been a battle, bro. That the last two games the Cavs have played at home, Harden, how he ended game three, just straight ISOs. That was crazy, bro. And then with D Mitch, having an onslaught in the in the second half, bro. I was watching the game. I was so tight, bro. I was so tight. But the Pistons been trying. It's just it's easier said than done, but they really, really struggle when they go down like 12, 15. Like they've come back, obviously. I'm not saying they haven't done it before, but it's really hard when their shot is not falling because they're not a great like outside shooting team. So when they go down to these big margins and they're not hitting their shots, like it's hard for them to come back. You know what I'm saying? So that's my only thing. The role players are playing much better. Karis LeVert, your boy, been hooping. Danis Jenkins been hooping. Duncan had a really good first two games. I'm not sure about his stat line for 3 and 4, but overall, great series, bro. Pistons in 7, though, for sure. Pistons in 7.
Heard you. So we'll go through the Western Conference now. 2-2 in the Minnesota. Actually, we'll start with the sweep. I gotta talk about the Thunder a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah.
I was kind of not upset because obviously you get a sweep, you're happy, but like the Lakers didn't provide any type of challenge for us moving forward. Like Minnesota, I don't think we'll get out of this series, but the Spurs, like, we're AJ Mitchell's being guarded by Austin Reeves and getting whatever he wants. What is he gonna do when it's Stephon Castle on the other end? Like that's my issue with. And then Shea, this has been a thing for the last 3 years, not just like this year. When he gets an extended break, he's not the same number two that is MVP, automatic bucket. Like he struggles sometimes coming off of a long break. So I'm not worried because I still think this is the best team in the NBA, but I'm just kind of tight. Like LA got to the second round and they weren't much of a challenge at all. So not that I'm scared and I'm not on the team. I'm talking like I am, but those are just my initial thoughts. Super. Again, I'm not on the team, but super proud of the guys that got the sweep done, and that's a big thing. My fandom is high, so that's what I'm thinking. What you thinking?
Man. I mean, I'll start with the Lakers. Like, they have a lot of decisions to make in the offseason. You know what I'm saying? I think, I said this to Griffin, but in my opinion, two of your starting guards that are aiming to get over $200 million cannot guard. That's a hard like formula to build a team around them, in my opinion. So the Lakers got to look themselves in the mirror, and figure out like Luka can't guard and AR can't guard. So what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be hard to build a team around them. With the Thunder, bro, it just feels like they're playing at a different pace than the whole NBA. Obviously outside of the Knicks, but I think that the Thunder obviously a great team. They developed their players real well. Shea is automatic, but like I said, they're just playing at a different pace when you watch them play. It's just different, bro. It's different.
Yeah, to talk about the Lakers decisions, you didn't even mention LeBron James. Like, what does his future look like with this team? Is he gonna retire? Is he gonna stay? So I think like that's their number one concern, not concern, but decision that needs to be made is what's LeBron's future. But I think I said this to you and Griff a few months ago. Like you guys are saying, oh, you guys should be worried about the Lakers. Yo, Austin Reeves and Luka are cones out there. Like you can get you can get to any spot if they're in front of you. So that's concerning, especially when you think it's not like you're moving conferences. The Spurs and the Thunder are here to stay. So what is Luka? How is he going to be able to guard any 1 through 4 of the main guards on the Thunder or the Spurs? I don't think Luka can stay in front of any one of them. Harper, Vassell, Castle, AJ Mitchell, Jalen Williams, Shea, like those are all guards that will literally just get whatever they want against him. So that's a big concern. I'm glad you hit on that. But we could talk about this Minnesota series. Did you think Wemby should have got suspended? We'll end with this too.
Nah.
You don't
Definitely not suspension.
Yeah, I do think I don't personally think people should be suspended if they get kicked out of the game. They shouldn't be suspended for the game after. That's my personal thing, but what I think there's validity to people saying, okay, if that was Nas Reed doing it to Wemby, would he be suspended? If Draymond did that, would he be suspended? And yeah, reputation follows you, but I just think like you got to keep a consistent precedent. You started it. Draymond kicked somebody in the balls. He got kicked out of Game 5 of a NBA Finals, and then Wemby gets to again. I like people playing in these competitive series, but I just feel like there's a little bit of contradictory by keeping him in. But who you got in this series? We don't even have to break it down because the Game 5 is tonight, and it will probably be outdated by then. So what you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know I said Wolves in 7, man. I don't know if they have an answer for that boy Wemby, bro. I don't know if anyone does. So I'm gonna stick with my pick, Wolves in 7. I can't switch up, but it's gonna be rough. It's gonna
Yeah,
be rough.
I'm staying with mine. Spurs in 7. So who you got? You got OKC Knicks in the chip, or you got Spurs Knicks?
Oh, all right. Well, I definitely I think the safe pick is OKC. OKC to the finals in the West. Man, East, man. Man. I'm gonna say Knicks. I'm gonna say Knicks, but they're gonna beat the Pistons in 7 though. I think it's gonna
Okay, I
be a
like that.
7-game series.
Okay, I like that.
Um yeah, I'll go
You
with
wrote
that.
in a fandom bind for sure. But that's gonna do it for another episode of Not Even D2. We appreciate you tuning in, listening to us for the last hour. Appreciate you spending week to week with us. We got another banger dropping next week, so make sure to subscribe. Go follow us at Not Even D2, and we'll see you next week.